everybody. Welcome into episode 126 of the MudWatch Sports Podcast on this Monday, November 24th, 2025. I'm your host, Zach Malamo. Before we get started, please subscribe below. Follow all of my social accounts. Let's start things off in the world of baseball as we had some breaking news on Sunday evening. The New York Mets have traded their longtime outfielder Brandon Nimmo to the Texas Rangers in exchange for second baseman Marcus Semien. An interesting move for both teams who swap veterans over the age of 30. When you look at it from the Mets side, they trade Brandon Nimmo, the longest tenured Met, 10 years with the organization. And last year, he was a real solid player offensively. 262 average, 760 OPS, but career highs in both home runs and RBIs, 25 home runs, 92 RBIs. A really good year for Nimmo behind the power hitters in Pete Alonso and Juan Soto in the middle of that Mets lineup. So they look at that for Nimmo. The offense was strong, but that did not get them too far. Of course, this team missing the playoffs last year, a very disappointing year, and it was time to break up this core of Nimmo, Alonso, Soto, as well as Francisco Lindor. Nimmo was the one that had to go in this case, as defensively he was a liability in left field, and that's something that they needed to improve upon heading into this upcoming season. Defense, defense, defense. That's what David Stearns was preaching in his end-of-year press conference. When you look at defensively, Nimmo just did not have the same arm strength, the same outs above average that he had in previous years out in left, and that's something that the Mets had to improve upon this offseason. They end up getting a real strong defender on the other side in a second baseman in Marcus Semien that's so good defensively at second base, a two-time Gold Glove Award winner, but a guy who really has struggled offensively in recent years. Only batted .230 last year, 669 OPS, 15 home runs, 62 RBIs. 62 RBIs in 127 games. That's really unheard of from a guy like Semien, who's batting near the top of that Texas lineup. It's something that you got to work on heading into the season is Semien's offense. He's probably going to end up being anywhere from 6 to 9 in the middle of that Mets lineup. You can't really trust him at the top, especially coming off the year that he did. You're trying to get him back to that age 33 season, or age 32 season, when he had a phenomenal year, led Texas all the way to the World Series, made a strong case for AL MVP, a 7.7 WAR he had back in 2023, where he had 185 hits, which led the American League, 276 average, and an 826 OPS, 100 RBI season. And I think those times offensively are behind him. So when you look at it, the Mets make an interesting deal. They get a great defender at second base, but you look at the guys that they had around him, Luis Angel Acuna, you also had Jeff McNeil. The offense of those guys, you probably put them ahead of Marcus Semien, especially Acuna, who can steal a lot of bases. McNeil still has the power, can still get on base, and a strong RBI guy when you have him in the middle of that lineup. Semien, you're not going to get the same there. So an interesting move. Age 35 season he's heading into, but you only have him for 3 years versus Nimmo, who has 5 years left on his contract. I do find it interesting, and I don't think it's fair when Met fans say that they got the better player in this deal. When you look at Brandon Nimmo, he's really, really good offensively, and I do think the offense definitely outweighs the defense here in terms of Brandon Nimmo's case. When you look at the second base spot for this Mets team, yes, it's something that they had to clean up defensively, but Brandon Nimmo's production in the middle of that lineup, they need to clean that up. If they don't get a guy like Cody Bellinger on the market, Kyle Tucker on the market, I don't think it's a great move for the Mets in the end, because you are missing that power that Nimmo gave you a season ago. And I know it did not get you far, especially missing the playoffs last year, but this guy really had a great year offensively, and I think was almost peaking offensively at the right time. He's heading into, of course, his age 33 season, so that's something you have to take into consideration. They go short-term with Semien rather than long-term with Brandon Nimmo. On the other side for Texas, they end up getting a guy who's probably going near the top of their lineup, 1, 2, maybe even 3. A great offensive year for Nimmo last year with the Mets that Texas can now take advantage of. They have Corey Seager still. They also have Adolis Garcia, two guys that he can really communicate with, be great with in the top of that lineup. So that's something that Texas is looking for to improve on their offense, which really struggled a season ago, did not put up plenty of runs like they did just a couple years before that when they won the World Series. That's something they want to get back to, and Nimmo is a perfect fit, in my mind, in the top of that lineup for Texas. So they end up getting a great top of the lineup guy in Brandon Nimmo. Of course, the defense definitely gets worse with Semien, two-time Gold Glove Award winner at second base. They need to figure things out there and really make up for the loss of Semien. However, Nimmo's offense definitely going to help Texas out, a team that really struggled offensively a season ago. So we'll see what happens as the offseason goes on. The first shoe to drop for the New York Mets, it had to happen as Brandon Nimmo, the longest tenure Met, 10 years with the organization, and it definitely hurts for Met fans to see, but it was time after the disappointment that was last season. They send him to Texas, get second baseman Marcus Semien back in return. Just the first shoe to drop in what will be a very long offseason for the New York Mets coming up. Let's shift things to the world of football as both New York teams were in action this weekend. We'll start things with the New York Jets as they went down to Baltimore, took on the Baltimore Ravens, who were coming in on a 4-game win streak, and they dominate once again, 23-10. They end up getting the victory in a game where, the Jets held on for a little while. Jets fall to 2-9. Baltimore moves to 6-5. Now a 5-game win streak for Baltimore. The Jets did a great job in the first half, really settling things down defensively. They were great against a tough offense with Derrick Henry as well as Lamar Jackson. 72 total net yards in that first half for Baltimore. Fewest in a long, long time. All the way you have to go back to 2019 when they played the Colts, and that was the last time they had fewer than 72 yards in a regular season game in the first half. So Lamar Jackson was really stunned in that first half, you would say, with how bad this offense looked. Only 3 points up on the board. The Jets on the other side had a great offensive start. John Mechie ends up catching another touchdown pass, his second straight game with a TD, and the Jets in the second quarter took a 7-0 lead. They answered, Baltimore does, with a field goal 7-3 heading into the halftime locker room, but then it was the Derrick Henry show from there. A couple of 2-yard runs into the end zone to give Baltimore a 17 to 7 lead, in which Baltimore would not give that one back. The Jets offensively really stalled out in the second half. Breece Hall had a massive fumble all the way down on the 2-yard line that tried to get the Jets back into the game, but they just could not hold on to it. A big fumble from Breece, and the Jets end up giving up a huge scoring opportunity. But in a game where they came in 13.5-point underdogs, 14-point underdogs, the Jets did a really solid job, you would have to say, in this game. Defensively, they were very strong, holding Baltimore to just 23 points at home at M&T Bank Stadium. The Jets offensively do need some work. Tyrod Taylor, his first start since that Week 3 game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, looked pretty solid in this game. Had that one mistake with an interception in the middle of this one, but he also had that fourth down play where they did not get the conversion. That's more on the offensive coordinator, Tanner Angstrom, with the play call there, rather than it is on Tyrod Taylor. That fourth down conversion was really the end of the game. Jets were down 10-7, and really it was over from there. Once you give Baltimore in Jets territory, you give them the ball, they really have a short field there, and they were able to score to give them a 10-point cushion after that. So the Jets offensively definitely still need some work. There's still a lot more to go. However, you saw the positives of Tyrod Taylor in the game rather than a guy like Justin Fields, who's just been dreadful week after week in terms of the passing game. 222 passing yards for Taylor. If Fields got anywhere close to that in recent games, the Jets probably win some of those games. They are not able to do so, and Taylor ends up losing this one 23-10. But you got to take the positives out of it. The defense looked really good. The offense does still need some work, but you're seeing what Tyrod Taylor can do with this young offense and the new young weapons that he has in John Mechie III, who really had a long battle with cancer and then came into his NFL career, a couple of stops with Houston as well as Philadelphia, and really hasn't gotten a fair chance, you would say, as a guy who was a second-round pick, probably projected a first-round pick when he was at Alabama. Of course, tore his ACL in his final season there. So really a long battle for John Mechie to get to where he is now. Could be a really solid weapon, for this Jets team in the future. And he had a real solid game. 6 receptions, 65 receiving yards, along with that receiving touchdown on 7 targets. Somebody that Tyrod Taylor can really go to the next couple of games as the Jets head home next week to take on the Atlanta Falcons, who are coming off a big win, a division win against the New Orleans Saints, and we'll preview that game on Friday's episode. On the other side of New York, the New York Giants were up in Detroit taking on the Detroit Lions, and tell me if you've heard this one. The Giants blew a fourth quarter lead. Yep, that's right. They did it again. The 5th time this season they've blown a fourth quarter lead, and this one ended in overtime, 34-27. The final as Jahmyr Gibbs, the first play from scrimmage in overtime, a 69-yard run into the end zone for a touchdown, 34-27. It was at that point. The Giants did get a possession. Jameis Winston sacked by Aiden Hutchinson, and this one goes final. Turn it over on downs, the Giants do, and it's a gut punch of a loss once again for this Giants team. Their 6th straight loss, and they just cannot find any answer right now, even with their offense being so good in every single game in recent memory, you would think, in the last couple. Their defense is so putrid and continues to really let them down in the big moments. When they need to get a stop, they never get a stop. The Giants had an opportunity to extend their 3-point lead, in which Jake Bates then responded after the Giants turned it over on downs with a field goal to force overtime. Giants had the chance to end up extending it to a 6-point lead. They chose not to do so, and I'm with Mike Kafka on this move. You have to go for it there. You're inside the 5. You got a big opportunity to get this game over with. You have Jameis Winston, who was really, really solid in the game, and you go with your offense rather than trust a field goal. Your defense cannot get a stop anyways. Knowing the Lions, they would have come down and scored anyways against this Giants defense to ultimately win the game. But this defense has been so putrid every single time they need them to come up big. They do not. And ultimately, Shane Bowen paid the price, as earlier today, the Giants fired their DC, Shane Bowen, and Mike Kafka going to take the reins as the head coach. Of course, he's also being the OC right now. Giants have to figure out who's going to end up being their DC for the rest of the season. But anybody, if you ask Giants fans, can do a better job than what Shane Bowen has done the last couple of weeks. So many fourth quarter leads that they've completely blown, and it's come down to the defense. And the Giants have to figure something out now. With this defense being so bad, they're looking towards the offseason saying, how can we get better defensively? Where's our pick going to be? What are we going to do to get this defense back to what it was? Even just a season ago, they were really, really good. They were probably middle of the pack towards the top of the NFL. Just a couple of years ago, this defense was really, really strong. It's gone all downhill since then for this Giants team, and they have to find some answers. Shane Bowen being out is the first answer, according to the Giants organization, so we'll see what happens. But as for this game, Jameis Winston, the trick plays, the everything, the long passes, getting Wan'Dale Robinson involved, that's what you wanted to see from this Giants team heading into this game. 366 passing yards, couple of passing touchdowns. He did have the pick in the end, but also had a receiving touchdown. The trick play with Gunnar Olszewski going to Jameis Winston, who runs down the sideline into the end zone, breaks a tackle, and gets in for 6. They end up blowing the lead, of course, but you like what you see from this Giants offense, especially with no Jackson Dart in this game, no Cam Scatterbo for the rest of the season, no Malik Neighbors for the rest of the season. You like the trio that they have in Jameis Winston, Tyrone Tracy Jr., as well as Wan'Dale Robinson. Wan'Dale Robinson, how about him? What a game he had. 14 targets on the day, turned it into 9 receptions, 156 receiving yards, and a touchdown, including a 40-yard bomb that he brought into the end zone. So the Giants really like what they saw from Wan'Dale. They're getting the offensive playmakers involved, even without the stars that they're missing for the rest of the season. And that's what you like to see from this Giants team offensively. But it's really a disaster right now on defense, and something that the Giants are going to have to deal with. They end up heading into the bye week pretty soon. But first, they end up taking on the New England Patriots. This one is next Monday, Monday Night Football, and we'll preview that game on Friday's episode. But the Giants lose another heartbreaker. Their fifth fourth quarter lead that they've blown this season, 34-27, is the final in overtime up in Detroit. In the NBA, the New York Knicks were in action on Saturday evening. They were down in Orlando taking on the Orlando Magic, and it was Orlando who came out on top 133-121 as the Knicks fall to 1-5 away from home this year, have really struggled away from MSG. And this game, they lose the game. They also lose an important player, is Landry Shamet, who recently became a starter for this Knicks team with OG Anunoby out. He ends up looking like he has a serious shoulder injury. Knicks still no word on how long he's going to be out for, but only played 3 minutes in this game, and that was a real hurtful one for this Knicks team. You look at them, they're pretty thin in terms of that fifth starter, who they can go to. Of course, Josh Hart could be back in the starting lineup. He gives them a little bit of juice in terms of their starting lineup, rebounds, assists, and just a hustle type of player, but does not give them the same offense that some of those guys that they've lost do. As you look at OG Anunoby, you also look at Landry Shamet, two guys that have really been good on the offensive side of the ball this season. They lose that if they put Josh Hart in the starting lineup, but that's what happens a long basketball season. You're going to get injuries. They also have Jordan Clarkson on the bench. Did have a solid game in this one. 34 minutes he played, shot 6 of 10 from the field, 3 3-pointers as well, 15 points he has on the day. So the Knicks could go with him as well. But really right now the Knicks are struggling to win games on the road. They get Jalen Brunson back, and he had another phenomenal game after that debut game against the Dallas Mavericks, where it was really all Brunson in that one. When you look at this game, though, 33 points, 12 of 21 shooting, 3 of 9 from beyond the arc, but also had 11 assists in this game. Played 37 total minutes. So the Knicks are really going to rely on Brunson. They're going to rely on Towns a lot. They're also going to rely on Bridges to really take up the load that they're losing in both Shamet as well as Anunoby. They do have some guys on the bench that they could go with. Deuce McBride did not play in this game against Orlando, so he could also be another option to head into that starting lineup if he is healthy. The Knicks have a real tough time heading on the road. If they lose the next game on the road, though, you're really, really worried. 1-5 away from home, but they're going up against an 0-7 team on their home floor in the Brooklyn Nets, who are 3-13 on the year. This one takes place tonight, 7:30 start out at the Barclays Center, and the Knicks come into this game as 13.5-point favorites, total sitting at 228.5. And like I said, Brooklyn, 7-game home skid. They have to figure things out on their home floor. If the Knicks lose this game, then you're getting real worried. But the Knicks should handle business against their crosstown rival. I mean, these teams are not even close to each other in terms of the talent on their roster. So the Knicks have to come up with a win, have to bounce back after a tough loss on the road to Orlando, who's had the Knicks number early this season. 0-2 the Knicks are against the Magic. A win away from home by the Magic at MSG, followed by that past game for this Knicks team on Saturday when Orlando won it on their home floor. So we'll see what happens, but make sure you tune in tonight, 7:30 start, as the Knicks take on their crosstown rivals, the Brooklyn Nets, at 7:30 out at the Barclays Center. Let's finish things off today in the world of college basketball, as number 14 St. John's has a rough couple of days coming up. They take on two very tough opponents. It all starts today. 4:30 start. They take on the 15th ranked Iowa State Cyclones in the first game out at the Players Era Festival for St. John's in Las Vegas, Nevada. And Iowa State comes into this game as 2.5-point favorites. Total sitting at 158.5. St. John's, of course, their toughest game this season was against Alabama so far. this could have a real argument to be the toughest. Iowa State is no joke, a team that continues year after year to make it far in the NCAA tournament. They're led by their senior guard in Tamin Lipsey, who has been really solid so far this season. 19 points per game. He's averaging 4 rebounds per game, as well as 5 assists a game. He's shooting 57% as a guard. A really talented player in Tamin Lipsey who can really get the job done for Iowa State. Of course, when you look at St. John's, though, they need to take advantage down low. They have to come up strong. Iowa State has some demons down there. They got some big dudes that can really cause St. John's a lot of problems, but St. John's, with their talent down low, Bryce Hopkins being one of them, Dylan Mitchell, the transfer out of Cincinnati, another, and of course the returning senior captain in Zuby Ejiofor down low, they have to step up and get the job done if they're going to beat Iowa State in this one. A very tough game on the road in Vegas. They take on Iowa State. This should be a great matchup. Make sure you tune into this one later. But you also have tomorrow at St. John's. It does not get any easier tomorrow. They take on Baylor, who's 3-0 to start the season. Scott Drew has his team ready to go. St. John's coming into that game 5.5-point favorites, total sitting at 162.5. You got a 4:30 game today. You also have a 5 o'clock game tomorrow. St. John's looking to step up and prove that they're near the top in terms of the top teams of college basketball. Of course, the loss to Alabama, but Bama's been beating a lot of teams. They also beat Illinois this past weekend out at the United Center in Chicago. So Alabama, no joke. St. John's still trying to prove that they're near the top after a great season a season ago. They get some of their toughest tests of the year and some of the toughest tests for the rest of the year in Iowa State today. A 4:30 start in Las Vegas. Then tomorrow, Baylor, a 5 o'clock start out in Vegas. What a weekend. What a week for St. John's that they have coming up. And we'll see what happens as the Cyclones and the Bears get ready to take on the Red Storm. Make sure you tune into both of these games today and tomorrow out in Las Vegas. But that will do it for episode 126 of the MudWatch Sports Podcast. Please subscribe below. I've been Zach Malin, but thanks for watching. Have a happy Thanksgiving and talk to you all on Friday.